Hi guys, Scott Martin. Welcome to the East Texas Stress Reduction Clinic. Underneath you're going to see several different videos that go over the different pillars of coaching that we do here at the clinic. The first pillar of coaching has to do with practicing presence. I've been teaching some form of mindfulness and meditation for pretty much the last 10 years, where we have an enormous amount of science that shows that we can actually shift the way our brain works and the way that we hold our reality based off of how we practice being present in our lives. So I invite you to watch that video. The second pillar of coaching has to do with healing trauma. And we use that word trauma very loosely here. We're talking about everything from emotional conditioning to trauma little t, trauma big T, where there's been some aspect of fight, flight, freeze, or disconnection that has created an upregulation of a trauma cycle that hasn't completed its cycle yet. And so we have defense mechanisms that show up subconsciously that just they begin working with behavior from everything to what we're attracted to in relationships to the way that we show up in life. And they're just fascinating patterns that once you kind of understand the mechanisms, it's really interesting to see why we've been doing the things that we do. Within that, insight doesn't always shift behavior, though. It's actual processing and conditioning that makes the difference. So we introduce people to a lot of different variations of somatic processing. And somatic processing is, with trauma, we've learned just so much with polyvagal theory of how the body holds and keeps score of these defense mechanisms. And sometimes that's passed on through modeling and generational trauma. Sometimes it's childhood, sometimes it's past relationships. And there's very specific patterns that we can kind of throw up on a board and we can become allies against the patterns, not kind of stuck in those same patterns, repeating them over and over and over again. So somatic processing is where we bring, there's a lot of different modalities that are out there where we use body-based techniques to quickly get this amazing advanced imagination and advanced memory out of the way in such a way that the body can do what it does naturally, which is actually heal. And that it doesn't take 15 years for us to heal mental and emotional suffering. It can actually take just a couple of sessions or a certain amount of processing for that to occur as well. So it's a fascinating time that we're alive. I invite you to watch the section on somatic processing and maybe learn a little bit about what's actually possible. The third pillar is strategy. And when we say strategy, not all coaching, not all counseling is actually equivalent. In relationship, we now know so much about what actually makes a relationship successful. We can look at 3 longevity studies, 3 decades of work with Gottman and his wife showing us pretty much in hindsight how we can predict divorce with about a 94% accuracy. What takes energy out of a relationship, what puts it back in. The other one is understanding these patterns like complementary wounds, how we're actually physically attracted to our partners or our spouses because they give us every chance at healing those past emotional traumas or generational childhood or past relationship traumas. And the way that they do that is they trigger every one of them, creating pain. Pain is a guide. If you know how to read that guide, it will show you actually what needs to be healed, which means that your relationship is actually this divine mirror reflecting what needs to be healed within you. The question is how do you read that? How do you use it? How do you put that to work for you? I invite you to look at the sections on those down below as well. There's a lot of other strategies that really, really work when we understand that we can immediately create some shifts, understanding the how and why we got where we are. But also there are aspects of mindful inquiry, such as human needs psychology, where we begin understanding how everyone gets their needs filled, but are we going to fill those needs negatively, neutrally, or positively? And once you map that out, it's just a really, really fruitful area of mindful inquiry that begins to show you how when we fill 3 or more of our 6 human needs, even if it's done in a negative way, at a 7, 8, or 9 out of 10, that that action, that thought, that behavior soon becomes an addiction for us in some way. And so understanding how we got this way, we want to not just have an insight, we want to have a path that gets us from A to B that shows you how to melt everything that might have been handed to you as a defense mechanism, everything that's actually not you, so that we can reclaim that energy and melt back into a state of flow. State of flow being a place where it takes minimal to no effort for us to be us. Doesn't that sound nice? It's not just possible, it's something that we can actually acquire very rapidly. In fact, I would be bold enough to say we actually have the psychological technology now that we could completely eradicate mental emotional suffering in one generation. The problem is, from what we know to its implementation in mainstream America or society, is it's taking too long for us to get the information about what we know and how to process things. And so there's a real opportunity for people not just to learn, but to share what they learn and to have the ability to not just take control of their own lives, but to step into playing bigger with their lives of what they're destined to do and potentially shift generations to come after them. So we want to show you what's possible. We can't wait. Look at some of the videos. If you're ready to do the work and you're committed to it, schedule a deep dive and let's go kind of do some mindful inquiry into what you need to melt. Take care, guys.